We're here at the One-to-One Mining Investment Conference in Cape Town. Now, for those who haven't heard of the story before, can you give us an introduction to Conic?
Yeah, sure. Conic Metals is a pure play, a leveraged pure play nickel story, and really the only producing investable nickel story listed on the TSX.
So talk about your plans for the next 12 months or so and your project.
Yeah, well, the company's relatively new, just formed at the end of last year, and I think it's really helping people understand the asset base that we have. You know, we own a 10% interest in Ramu, which is maybe the 5th largest nickel producer in the world. And so, you know, as the electric vehicle story continues to roll out, as adoption accelerates, and as the grid storage and general electrification themes kind of roll out, you know, you're going to see a dramatic increase in Class 1 nickel demand. And so I think it's really helping people understand that and really understanding the supply-demand dynamics around nickel. You know, if we look forward in the coming years, depending on adoption rates of EVs and different electrification systems, you know, you may need as many as 10 to 14 EVs built by 2030, and there are no major nickel projects under construction. So it's really helping the audience understand, you know, how integral nickel is to the electrification. And you know, now with this wave of ESG investing that's kind of coming, helping those investors understand the importance that nickel plays in the battery chemistries.
So it's a positive market outlook then?
Oh, look, this is one of the most interesting commodities in the world. I think a lot of investors are focused on gold today, and that's interesting, and that's really a currency and a play on macro conditions. But if you look at the transformation that's happening inside of the automobile industry right now with all the new EV launches, and the sales explosions that Tesla's really experiencing, it's important and fundamental to understand what's driving that, and that's really the lithium-ion battery, which should have been called the nickel-ion battery. I mean, you know, this is a nickel-based battery, and we're a play on that. You know, we produce that nickel.
And so what differentiates you from your peers?
Well, there are no peers. I mean, in Canada, we are the only pure play. Now, of course, there are producing nickel assets locked inside of companies like Glencore, but when you look onto that exchange, we're the only ones that investors can invest in across sort of all investment, you know, profiles globally. There is another listed company, but it doesn't sort of check all those boxes. And so I think what's unique about us on the TSX is we're sort of the only one there. You know, we're not raising development capital. You know, we don't have to build a mine. We don't have to make a discovery. It's producing, and it's one of the most important mines in the world.
So talk about the sort of key messages you're trying to get across to investors here at One-to-One.
Well, I think there's a couple. I think the first one is just we exist, right? You know, it's a new company. It's been around just for a matter of months now. So I think that's important. And then, you know, the other part is really understanding how integral nickel really is to the ESG story, which is gaining tremendous momentum in the market with Rio and all the big guys talking about it. And then, of course, just the impact that nickel has on the battery chemistries. And, you know, as we know, these battery chemistries for nickel, manganese, cobalt, nickel, cobalt, alumina, they ultimately start off as like a 1-1-1 ratio. And over time, what we're seeing is a replacement of cobalt with nickel. And so it's really understanding these factors and helping investors to get to know us and realizing that unlike a lot of companies out there, you know, we're not after capital, we're producing, and we give you that leverage to the story.
And how are you finding the One-to-One conference?
Oh, it's great. I mean, you know, these guys have done a great job. I mean, really out of nowhere, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they've built what is, you know, kind of the most important African-based mining conference. So this is always a highlight of the season to come down and see, and it's busy.
Well, thank you very much. Great to speak to you.